Okay, good morning. So, shed tour. Here we go. So that was my shed. It is 4 meters by 5 meters. At the moment, the workshop is contained inside the shed, and I have a few bits and pieces outside, which I'll show you. Okay, this is where I keep my pallets. Now, I don't actually like to have a heap of pallets on hand in case we get cyclones. Otherwise, I've got to get all this stuff hidden away. Let me quickly show you some of these pallets. Some are probably going to warrant their own video as a project. Some of them will just be mixed in whenever I need some more stock. Okay, let me start with these three. Now, I actually went looking for pine pallets, believe it or not, because I needed pine pallets for a thumbnail, and all I could find were these. So no good for a thumbnail, but there is some amazing timber in these three, so I think they need to be busted down and they need to be their very own project. Also, generally grab all these scabby pieces. It's always got these nice tones of timber, and again, it's not pine. And same with these. I generally avoid these pallets because they're a little bit of a bastard to break down, but now it's all about the color of the timber, so they're actually just far too valuable as well. So there's several of those. These will probably be grey by the time I get to them. However, once they clean up, they'll be good to go. Ooh, let me dig this one out. Okay, this is probably the heaviest pallet that I have ever found. It's ridiculous. It's obviously a Hardius Vicarius of some sort. Very Hardius Vicarius. So again, I think this pallet in particular is going to warrant its very own project, but I don't know what that is yet. But for now, more than happy for it to stay right here because it's so heavy. Now again, this whole area out here, I actually want to thin it right down so there is nothing stored out here, unless it can be secured down, obviously. I don't want it just to be a dumping ground of shit. Because if a cyclone does spring itself on us here in Townsville, I've got to find somewhere for all this really quickly so these things can't blow around and smash other people's houses, etc. or hurt somebody. But for the moment, I'm probably okay. Haven't quite got to cyclone season yet, so I'm not going to go and get any more. You're not going to believe this. There is a cyclone bearing down on Townsville. Okay, a little over dramatic. However, there is a cyclone coming. I've got today to film as much of this as possible. Then I have to literally put everything into the shed this afternoon. I am working the weekend, and if you don't know, I work in emergency services, and I'm probably going to get a bit busy next week. Okay, so this is the current routine. I push out this station here. It has a dodgy weatherproof roof on it, very dodgy, and it lets me lock everything up for now until I build some sort of awning / extension so that I may start to bring some things outside the shed. Not 100% convinced on that plan yet. Okay. So, daily routine, it's very squeezy to get anywhere at the moment. That's my only path to the other side. If I've got a project on the go, it's even more cozy. So I'm tucked right in the corner where the dust extraction is, and that's pretty much the only space I have to move. Now the reason this is tucked over that way, it is actually tucked right in up against the table saw. This space here is not big enough to work. So the plan will be to get this CNC on some draw slides. So that can slide across the top of the table saw, and that is going to let this slanty roof thing actually flop back down. As you can see, the distance from the base of the cabinet out to this roof is why this has to be pushed in so far. If this can flap down, this whole station can move back. Wait for it. And once that is moved back and has a home, the table saw, the new table saw, which is a lot broader than my other setup, that'll be able to go that way about a foot. That's more than enough for me to then work in there, use the jointer, and then work at a router station whenever I get to that. Okay, so some other things you can see around here while I'm standing here. My failed coffee table, that is going to be the nicest outfeed table you might have seen on the internet. And over here, that is the laser. Let me turn around. And that is going. Dan from Riverside Woodworks, he's coming around this afternoon. He's going to pick that up and he's going to stick it in his shop. If I ever need to cut anything on the laser that the CNC can't do, I'll just go to Dan's. Plus, I can attach a laser to my CNC if I want to do engravings, not cuttings. Okay, let's turn some lights on. And a fan, it's hot. Okay, so the whole point of getting this on wheels, which was originally my miter saw station, pushing that outside actually gave me back another 600 mil here, which at the moment is the broadest piece of floor space that I have. So just to have a little bit of room to move is very much good for my brain. Okay, sliding around to this little space. This area between here is just enough to set the thicknesser up about here, and I can run my boards through. I've just got to shimmy through the gap there. It is a little bit cozy, but that's what I have to deal with for now. Okay, my other workspace is between the workbench and the saw, which looks quite large at the moment, but keep in mind, I've still got to add some outfeed to that area there. So again, it'll be probably a similar space as over here, enough to move and not lose my marbles squeezing through things. Now, what would be pretty cool, see the jointer over here. Now that is an amazing machine that a dude gave me, basically. But that and that could be combined as one and live over there. I have been looking at combo machines. Get all that action over there, and then I don't have to have this routine. It also frees up more space to the wall. Now, if I ever do that upgrade, that won't be there. And if I do extend outside the shed, the lathe might actually go outside the shed. And again, if the lathe goes outside the shed, that's good for two reasons. This thing probably produces the most mess. There's no real way to contain the shavings. Dust can be extracted okay, but again, a lot of it just goes everywhere. Get that outside, that now frees up this whole wall, so I can start to get larger sheets through the new table saw. But saying all that, I actually like the idea of trying to keep it contained in my small little backyard garage. I know everyone wants to have more space and do everything, but I do like to show how to do things with what you've got. It's one of the reasons the laser is going, the miter saw went, because I got the CNC. Like, this space can't do everything, and I don't actually want everything. It's too much. It just becomes cluttered, and it actually gets a little bit frustrating to not be able to move at all. I would rather rotate some things through if I really have to, and just figure out different ways of doing things. Cool? Alrighty, let's talk about my dust extractor up there. You'll notice that it's now orange. It's now Sherwood orange. About a month ago, my dust extractor just started tripping, packing it in, getting overheated to the point where day after day, that was it. I could not figure it out. I actually bit the bullet and bought a new one. And then when I had time, the idea was to take the other one to work, get the engineers to actually look at it, find the exact part that was broken, rather than keep buying things and hoping for the best. Fix that, and then with all the leftover pieces, because that is just a stock standard 2 horsepower that every company sells. So I would have enough pieces to make a dust extractor and sell it. Good plan. So yes, I didn't want to buy a new dust extractor, but I could have recouped some of that money, and I actually wanted this thing in action at the same time as the new table saw. Side story is not important. Now, what did happen was when I finally pulled the old extractor out, took it outside, I plugged it in, turned it on, and it started. It did trip out immediately, hit the reset, and then it just come to life, and it hasn't failed since. So I've sent that thing over to Lucas at Resonate Wood Co. He's going to look after it, i.e. it's his for $5. And if it shits itself, he'll fix the parts that are required. So you win some, you lose some. He won, I lost. Okay, back to the lathe. Now, I originally had a little cheap and nasty that I used to see if I actually like wood turning. I did. I spent a lot of time going around to Dale's, watching him work, learning from him. And then I decided that I want a lathe. I didn't want to spend a couple of $1,000 on a new machine that I was going to be disappointed with, or I couldn't flog the crap out of. So he convinced me to try and look at these Vic marks. These are about $7 grand, brand new. I found this one on Gumtree for about $2.5 grand, but it was about a 400-kilometre drive. So it was a day trip to get up and back. Well worth it. This thing has been amazing. The lathe is one of my little side hustles to the side hustle. So I like to turn small items like mallets and sell them to other woodworkers. This thing's here to stay. There has heaps of other potential to do all sorts of different things. But again, it's a case of getting time to just focus on that. Turning videos aren't really what my channel's about. I gave that a bit of a go. Wasn't super popular at all, which I get the reasons why. That's the lathe. All right, what's next? All right, this is the DeWalt thickness. So it's the chunkier of the two that you can get. It's a benchtop thickness of planer. The main reason I bought this is because when I started watching YouTube videos, this is all that I saw pretty much. A couple of $100 dearer than their smaller thing, but I figured I was going to flog the absolute life out of this, sending loads of pallet wood slabs through and through and through. So I wanted something that had the grunt without spending the big price tag of a dedicated floor-mounted machine. I cannot bang on about this thing enough. What I did do was upgrade the spiral cutter head. That was about $700, and again, that was probably one of the best upgrades that I've done to anything in the shed here. So amazing finish. It actually made things a lot quieter, and the economics sharpening or buying new blades compared to the life that you get out of a spiral cutter head with the little teeth is, trust me, I've done the maths, and it's well worth the upgrade. Oh, yeah. All right, I'll just get in here just for a different camera angle. This is the jointer I've got it for free. If you want to hear that whole story, I did a video restoring this thing, if you want to go way back. This is an amazing thing. It's, I don't know, it's 70 to 100 years old. No idea, can't find the markings. It weighs a lot. It is rock solid, built when dust extraction was not a thing. I actually call this thing the wood chipper. I generally have this on a pretty aggressive setting to square up some pretty ordinary timber. I then use the other machines to clean everything up nice and flat and square. Again, this will be a very hard thing to get rid of. Now, I would only do that if the jointer and the thicknesser combined as a combo machine to live over here was worth the space savings, the dust collection, and other pros and cons that I've not really thought about yet. And it's a little bit of a wish list type of item. They're very expensive, but again, it's one of those set a goal, start making some monies, and buy the thing. So that's pretty much worked for me so far. Okay, wall storage for timber. I don't have a heap of it. However, these ones are pretty much available in all the colors. They are pretty inexpensive. Get those mounted up there. Just gets things off the ground, stops this from happening where every single corner in your workshop starts to fill up with all sorts of shit. Okay, let me talk about cabinetry. So this one, and all the cabinets that make up this station. And I actually had a heap more of those cabinets in, hang on, there's another one down there. Hold the phone. Here is another one on wheels. Okay, I'm back. Now, they are actually an old kitchen. And ironically, how I got that kitchen was during the last cyclone of 2019 in Townsville. Sorry, not the cyclone. The 2019 floods. One of my mates' houses got flooded out and the kitchen was written off because the flood water came up into the kitchen. The only real damage was to the lower level of the kickboard. So all of that cabinetry was basically getting written off. I took a trail around, picked it all up, and that cabinetry has evolved in this shed in so many different ways. If you go right back in all my other videos, you'll see this kitchen everywhere. Very much like Lego getting moved around as this place changed over the years. The good thing about an old kitchen is everything is square. It's got cupboards, it's got drawers, there's hardware, and it's very modular. It's not a bad idea to keep an eye out for people demoing a house, or keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace of people throwing things like this out. So people renovate a kitchen, they don't give a shit about the old kitchen. They just want the new shiny one. So there is a good chance that you can pick up this. Really is great for a workshop. And again, all cabinets are only 600 wide. So your benches are only going to be 600 off any wall, which again maximizes any walkway and floor space that you might have. 600mm is the right size for your sliding compound miter saws, like the Bosch that I had, or the Makita, or that green brand. Can't say it. People get angry. Finally got a compressor after many, many years, and that combined with a pneumatic denailer is pretty much all I use that for. The efficiency that a nail shooter outerer has provided me with was well worth the $100 and something for a cheapy air compressor. I do have links for this below. Some dude in America, Mr. Steve Cortez, he actually bought this for me way back. I think he got sick of me smashing out nails with my hands. Thanks, dude. Okay, next little part, I want you to look past all the shit and actually look at the walls. I eventually got some insulation for the whole shed. Again, that was to cool things down, but also help with the noise. Behind these large MDF, what are they? Particle board. There is some insulation as well. Most of the way around the shed, there's still some bits that I haven't got to. So these massive sheets of particle board, they're actually out the back of Bunnings. So they're a bit over an inch thick, and they are fantastic for lining your garage shed style walls to give you then all sorts of opportunities to hang stuff off and give yourself a flat surface as well. Over in this corner, I actually bought some ply. That's another option if you really have to. If you can get it cheap enough, it's probably a little bit dearer to go that way. But I sort of had to do it when I was making this cyclone dust extractor. And on this wall, you'll see that they're all white walls. That is actually melamine. And at the time, that was really cheap as well. So a full sheet, 120 be 240. A few of those quickly covers that wall. Up the top, you can just see that it is screwed straight into the steel of the shed. And again, it's giving me a nice flat surface. White, it's a little bit better for light in here. And again, it let me screw all sorts of things onto that wall, make it more usable. Okay, another one of my favorite things in the shed is actually my Bill and Ted sign that I made. It's just a cool thing to have in the background, but very much sends a message every time people see it. It's not actually just a pretty thing, it's a cupboard, and I call it my secret skateboard storage area. And that is actually just a box that was thrown out at work. It was twice that depth flares that we throw out of the helicopter actually come in these boxes. So every few months there's potential for me to take home a couple of these boxes, use all the pine, but again, finding boxes makes good storage. This cupboard here, that came out of my house. So I think a lot of people have this cheapy IKEA flat pack furniture. This again has done lots of iterations. It was quite larger than that. I've chopped and changed it to give me just what I need. But the bonus is, again, it's only 400 deep off the walls. So again, you're not cutting into your floor space or usable area. But the good thing is drawers and cupboards, keep all your shit in there. You keep a lot of the dust off all your bits and pieces. Okay, this shit fight area here, left over from the last project, and also all the melamine that was recycled from that kitchen, which made up my table saw station with the old table saw. And speaking of, there it is there. It's finally been retired. If I have to use that again, then something's gone horribly wrong. Oh! Okay, I'm gonna talk about my workbench a little bit later. I want to get rid of this thing first before we get into what all this meant to me. Yes, it's just a workbench, but stick with me. All right, clamps. Now, these heavy-duty sash clamps, I did not start with those. They're probably the last thing I would have bought. They have proved very handy for making all sorts of presses because they have this massive clamping pressure, like 7,000 pounds of somethings. I did some work for TimberCon, so I got a few of those. I then bought a few more for myself so that I could have 6 of them. Okay, so my 4 main clamps that I now use are just these pipe clamps. I still do have 4 or 5 of the old pipe clamps that you get off eBay. They are super cheap. They're like $40 for a packet of 4. buy the pipes and you got yourself set up with 4 clamps for about $100. I used to have about 8 of those, and I've slowly broken a few of those over the years. I now just keep those there just in case when I need an extra few pipe clamps. Okay, and if you are just getting started, just get pipe clamps. You're probably going to see heaps of parallel clamps on YouTube and with the creators that you might be watching. They are expensive. I don't have any yet. I'll probably get some eventually because I'm sure they have some amazing additional properties. But pipe clamps do the job. They're amazing. They're easy to keep clean. They don't clog up. The sash clamps, they don't take much glue and they become a little bit of a pain in the ass. So I've constantly got to clean off any glue that gets on those teeth. Pipe clamps. Just go to the pipe clamps. Alrighty. Squeezy clamps, it's good to have a few of these. I have gone through a fair few of the old Irwin ones. Most of those are now dead. These DeWalt ones have seemed to have lasted. However, I don't abuse these as much as I used to abuse the Irwin ones. What I would say instead is maybe just buy F clamps. Get yourself set up with 4 to start with, then get yourself some longer ones, and then you can add as you go. 8 clamps is generally going to do all sorts of things for you. I've just collected a few more over the years. Again, did some work for TimberCon, so I've got 8 orange ones now as well. Okay, for no particular reason, there's my cheapy Inco battery power tools. There is a circular saw, which I chose because it had a dust port and my DeWalt one doesn't. There's a jigsaw, a grinder, and there is a reciprocating saw hiding somewhere. And again, I don't mind having a few of the cheapy battery tools for the tools that I only use randomly, like several times a year. I've now got DeWalt, which I use every day when I'm out here, and I flog those, and their motto, DeWalt tough. They're tough. Pretty sure there's not much difference between DeWalt, Milwaukee, and Makita, or Bosch, whatever. I think it's more of a case of finding the best deal to get you started in an ecosystem, which I might talk about later. So, power tools, I have a impact driver, a drill, a router, and a sander, and a circular saw, which my only regret was that it didn't have a dust port, which was my mistake. I should have just spent a little bit more and got the next model up. Alrighty, quick look in here. So, this is my little hand tool cabinet, which I made. Now, I might talk more about that when I talk about the, what's that thing? The workbench. But again, they probably gather more rust than dust, so I probably need to use those a little bit more. This little magnetic strip, that was a recent addition. I've been watching people use these for years, and I don't know why I didn't get one sooner. So just the few random things that I lose frequently, having a place to now just slap those up has saved me so much grief. For example, this thing, rather than digging through a bucket full of drill bits and the like, it gets used a lot, so it lives up there. Alrighty, here is the new table saw. It is a Sherwood 12-inch cabinet saw. You're probably going to learn a lot more about this thing on the actual TimberCon channel, where I'll be doing a heap of work for this machine. But just quickly, the obvious big things is the massive table, cast iron, huge fence, overhead dust. Not exactly sure how amazing that's going to be just yet. However, it is plumbed in with a single point, so the dust collection off this saw blade is actually quite good. They improved that on this particular model. And again, I've still got to build some outfeed, which I'll probably have to dodgy up this system, remove it off the actual saw itself and mount it under bench. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get a decent outfeed on here as it is at the moment. Okay, you might recognize this cabinet from a video several months ago. I gave up trying to sell it. I decided to keep it because the storage is actually really good, and again, it doesn't sit that far off the wall, and it actually is nice and low. So for now, it's going to live there. Whether it forms part of the outfeed table yet, I don't really know. Okay, I got to have fans in here, so I've got to buy another one of these and get it over there so it can treat me to a bit of coolness when I'm at the lathe or when I'm at the table saw, so that the fan is actually coming from behind me rather than this one that blows any dust into my face. Okay, so CNC, I definitely do not have any regrets getting rid of the miter saw. Yes, it's already come up where I thought, oh, I'll just whip that off with the miter saw, and I haven't had a miter saw. So I've had to grab out a circular saw or grab out a hand saw. The hand saw's been just fine, but it sort of told me that I don't have any quick places to just stick a chunk of wood on and do things the old way. So I'm going to start to think about more ways I can be more efficient with those sorts of things. But this thing, again, doing some work with CNC 3D, Aussie company on the Gold Coast. They supplied me with this machine. I made a heap of video for them. I've been so stoked with this machine, and one of the reasons that I'm more than happy for the laser to head over to Dan's house. So if you saw my last video on the main channel, the reception desk, that really shows what this thing can do for me in here. Even with a small work surface, it's a case of figuring out smaller parts that go together. I'm going to keep improving this area again for moving in and out and storage, making this place very modular, and very excited for what I can start to figure out with this thing. Alrighty, quick yak about dust collection, extraction. So while I'm at the table saw here, dust was actually one of the big reasons that I wanted to move away from the little job site saw. Great saw, flogged it to death, still alive, but the dust extraction is very, very difficult to try and contain. I did do a pretty good job in the end, having a gravity collection system make its way down to a port at the bottom, like a normal cabinet saw, but still, it did make a lot of mess. It was always a constant battle to get really good suction. One of the main reasons, whenever you've got to reduce down 100 mil to anything else, that's when these extractors perform the worst. It's not a case of making something small and getting more suction, you actually get less suction. Whatever the volume thingy-majig acronym is, that's the gist of it. Ideally, you want to keep the big pipe big for as long as possible, all the way to the machine to get the best out of it. So for example, on this new saw, it's got 100 mil down the bottom here. Then they've tapped in this overhead dust system over the blade. Although I have not used it yet to test it, just running the extractor, there's not a great deal of suction coming out of the small port. And even when I disconnect it, there's not a great deal that I can tell yet. Time will tell. Still, better than nothing. Better than what I had, which was shit going in my face all the time. Over the years, my dust setup, it started with the other dust extractor, which is the exact same unit. It's a 2 horsepower. It's available all over the world. It just comes in different colors. So now I've got an orange one, but it's a 100 mil system, which worked pretty good. I used to have all sorts of 100 mil PVC pipe going in different directions of the shed, combined with some flexible hose, finding all sorts of different ways over the years to join these two things together. Anyway, you can pretty much bodgy up all sorts of different attachments to keep that 100 mil dust flowing as best as possible. But what I found was the more twists and turns, connections and joins would actually reduce the overall suction where I needed it most. The plan for this one, yes, it can do 2 machines at once. And now that I have got the CNC and I want that thing working and collecting dust while I'm doing something else, I will have to have 2 machines on the go at once. So again, I've got 100 mil going to those. At the moment, it's pretty much flexible tubing and a little bit of PVC pipe just to save on flexible tubing because I had a heap of PVC left over. The plan, the lathe and the CNC, they have their own dedicated line. Generally, if I'm at the lathe, the CNC could be running. There's enough suction to cover off both of those things. However, my other machines, so the table saw, the thicknesser, the jointer, and then anything else that I might happen to change in the future, all of those machines need to run off the other line. And the plan will be to come up with some sort of magnetic quick attachment point. Every man and his dog has made that thing. I've already started to design and cut one on the CNC, so I made a little flange, which I'll get the magnets. I just haven't got around to doing it just yet. But I want to be able to jump from table saw to thicknesser to jointer relatively quickly, just like that. I'll get back to you on that. But at the moment, the dust solution is pretty good, and it's even better now that it's in orange. Alrighty. So don't discount space on your roof. These L brackets was something I scored off Robin Lewis when he was leaving Townsville. So I can get lots of long things in here, get them out from outside, less things to blow away in a cyclone. And there's a couple more up there, so more space to put stuff. Okay, so here is the evolution of my straightening jigs. 1, 2, and 3. They are in heaps of videos. However, from here, so number 3, which is the simplest of them all, has just a little dovetail joint there, that allows these clamps to go in, these quick release ratchet clamps. These are by far the fastest, most efficient method compared to screw toggles or fold down toggles. I've talked about those in previous videos. So the plan will be to make this again, but a combination of all of them, as in I want this to be able to do tapers, broad boards, clean up the sides, joint, whatever. But that can all be done with these little clamps far quicker. Okay, so here is some more storage. This was originally underneath my original miter store station, so drawers went in there. This thing's now vertical, and then I can fill it up with all my offcuts that are about 600 mil long, and then they're tucked away in a corner, not making a massive mess. Okay, so future project, because I have so many offcuts of form ply from the last project with the CNC, I'll do a little Barber's Paddock woodworking pattern plywood project, I'd say, which also includes pulling apart all my old table saw additions, so the extended fence and the router thingamajig. Okay, hiding over here is my big box that one of my first lasers came in, one of the diode lasers. What I want to do is cut that down the middle and turn it into some sort of cabinet storage for something. Don't know what yet, but again, I just like the things that I've made in the videos. Gives people ideas, they double up the storage, so happy days. Okay, so just quickly, my Cyclone dust extractor. Now this is just the generic 2 horsepower unit that you see all over the place. I have then taken those parts and mounted them on the wall, changed a few things that go in different places to come up with the Cyclone. So here is my actual Cyclone, which I made. You can check that video out as well. And then I have a wooden drum down the bottom that gives me my 2-stage dust collection. Dust shavings and dust come in here, they spin around and they fall into the bottom, and all the fine particles of dust only go up and into the filtration system. This bag will eventually fill up with bits and pieces, but most of the time is because I haven't emptied the drum. So that's a bit of a giveaway for me. So if the spiral cutter head was the #1 upgrade to a thing that I've ever done, the #2 upgrade is getting a pleated filter. These things do such a great job, and they actually supercharge your dust collection compared to the bags. So all the pleat, science, it increases the surface area that can be sucked on. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, you keep that thing clean, your dust is supercharged. End of story. That's all you need to know. That's all I know. Okay, here's another wall, scrap piece of ply found in the dumpster. Behind that, there's actually some styrofoam that I got from work that was being thrown out. Again, that insulates that front side of the shed, but then gives me actual wall space rather than tin garage unusable walls. Alrighty, all this ply is the actual box that the CNC came in. Perfectly fine to make shop furniture. I actually like that it's got all the painting on it. It looks a little bit, you know, rough. But it just adds a bit of something in the background as well. But I would not want to buy all that ply. You know what I'm saying, Chris? Built by Chris? All right, sorry, just go back to these. As you know, I like to check square. If you can get a mate with a welder, weld you up some of these robust clamping corner jigs, gigantic check squares, if you will. They have been so handy in so many projects. Okay, this thing, I've put it on the wall, not square, of course. And I just wanted to say thank you specifically to the people watching this video. Although I've thanked everyone for everything you have done for me to help grow my other channel, the people that sit through the most and watch the most help get a video going. There's no science to it. The more people watch, the better it goes. So thank you very much to you who sit through my shit and help my channel. So thank you very much. Okay, these clamps are an extended jaw clamp. Can't remember the name of them. They have been very handy as well, but again, I probably would never have got those if I didn't do the work for TimberCon. But something that you may want to add further down the track as a little bonus clamp for random circumstances. Okay, this is my camera jig. It's the Wobi camera jig. I've used that for years. Up until recent time, I've actually stopped using it, not because I don't like it, it's because I've got to get my points set up around the shed properly. So I'll just have these pieces of pipe from Bunnings with the flange around the shop in various places. That would let me set up the camera jig, pop it on and off as required. The other thing I have is just a simple little tripod, about 40 bucks. This does extend, but most of the time I do keep it nice and low because it's more stable. The camera doesn't move around. And at the moment, 99% of the time, I just stick the camera on my little stool, unless I want to sit on the stool and slide into the shot to be a dickhead, or I want to sit on my stool and talk to you. But again, it's got a small footprint and can pretty much go anywhere around here, get set up in a matter of moments, and away you go. Like now, for example, I want to slide in here on the stool, so I put the tripod on the ground or just on a little step ladder, set up in about 2 seconds, good to go. And I'm filming on my phone, so phone goes in the tripod and away I go. I don't have expensive camera gear, I don't use microphones. One of the biggest improvements in this shed was actually the insulation, so the need for the microphone sort of went out the window. And then software can help you tune up your levels now anyway. I am slowly getting better at that. Saying all that, I would love some fancier things eventually, but they are the last thing on my shopping list ever. Getting everything I want in here to do what I have to do is more important. Every couple of years I upgrade my iPhone and the thing gets better and better every single time and does more and more things and shoots amazing video. So I still haven't justified buying a dedicated camera for filming what I do out here, which is, some people might think is odd given that my main side hustle now is YouTube videos. I still think if you don't need to spend the dough, then don't. And I don't. And can you actually tell the difference? I can't. And speaking of the phone, for producing YouTube videos, I used to do everything on the phone. I would shoot the video, edit the video, upload the video onto YouTube. I did that for several years and it did work just fine. But as your videos improve, you'd probably start to want a little bit more real estate, and then storage is probably the big one. Playing the iPhone storage shuffle over and over again can be a little bit inefficient. I would basically have to delete an entire project once it was done before I could get the next one on. You know, 1 or 2 projects was definitely the maximum I could have on the go when I used to do it that way. From the phone, I actually stole my daughter's iPad that she wasn't using. That gave me more real estate, but again, it had even less storage. So the phone now had more storage. I could film several projects, but then I could only get one project onto the iPad, edit that, upload it, delete it. And then about a bit over 12 months ago, I finally bought a Mac, bought Final Cut Pro software. That has definitely been more efficient. I think my videos are getting better and it does let me get them out the door quicker. I can also edit off an external drive so I can have multiple projects on the go if I really want to, without the Mac storage itself filling up. But that's about it. I'll move this. Oh, really? This my dickhead friend. Okay, before I yak on about the workbench, so behind me I've got 2 vacuums. That's my 4th vacuum on the right here. This little Inco battery was the 3rd. Started off with a cheapy Azedo, lasted a couple of years. It did the job just fine to just get in the game, or just get started. Then I got a, can't remember the brand. Anyway, it was a little bit better, probably about 200 bucks. It lasted several years as well. It was pretty good, did the job. The Inco one, I got that for free. All you had to do was like a 30-second video on Instagram to get some free tools. So that combined with their little circular saw that actually had a dust port, as opposed to my little DeWalt that had no dust port. So that was the reason I jumped on that. Turns out it's a little bit shit. Now that I have no miter saw, it's all about the table saw. I don't have a bandsaw. I will look at upgrading my circular saw to a DeWalt this year, one that has dust extraction. And now I have this. This again is not overly expensive, a couple of $100. I'll tell you down below here. But it is really nice just to have a vacuum that goes with your tools. To not to have to fack around with connections, adapters and all that stuff. Plug it in. Super powerful compared to anything else I've had. So it is a corded variant. 99% of the time I'm in here. So running down a battery on a vacuum probably doesn't make much sense for me anyway. So I'm pretty stoked with this one so far. Saying that, most vacuums are awesome when you first get them. They then can turn into a screaming nightmare before too long. So I'll keep you posted on that. But for now, happy days. All right, my workbench, I'll show you how it is now in its current glorious state, rather than go back and look at old footage. So I've got a combination of reclaim timber, hardwoods, heaps of pallets to give myself 2 nice big slab tops. I've got a dedicated video on the slabs, and then the workbench itself. Super solid, super heavy, still got plenty of room to do things down here and add things on here. It's a workbench, and it's also sporting this vise. I was many years in before I decided to build this workbench. You don't need a massive, chunky, all swinging, all dancing woodworking bench to just get started. You need to find a couple of pallets and an old piece of ply and make yourself a bench so you got somewhere to work. Then that bench can evolve and grow, incorporate table saws, do what you have to do just so you're off the ground and you've got somewhere that's not frustrating to work. What this bench was for me was a big project to start to actually improve my woodworking skills. The idea was to start to bring in some more hand tool action, chisels and mallets to build this thing. So what it did for me was it made me save up some coin, go get some decent chisels, learn how to sharpen, learn how to get better at banging things. Still not very good, and I don't do it very often. It let me build this. Now I adapted Cuffy's Woodwork Aussie Ocker workbench plans. The big difference is he has the angled legs, and at the time that maxed out my brain, so I went with the straight leg option. Still super strong and solid. And again, the plan was just to have this project on the go as I learned, as I gathered all the materials, which it was, I moved all these pieces around the shed for months on end, and I was not even going to make a video. This was about me learning something. But again, Cuffy heavily convinced me that you have to make a video if you're going to build a workbench. Turns out that was a pretty good move. The video did well sort of in its second, when I got a bit of a second win, so that was cool. The other thing here, bench vise. This is my 3rd vise. I found a nice vise on Marketplace for 50 bucks, how to make it work, restore it, because he liked cleaning up rusty old things. That was here for a long time. I actually abused it and was doing things, and I cracked some of that cast iron, so it's sitting over there and needs a repair. After that, I built a little pipe clamp vise, which is really easy to do. I got a video on that way back as well. And then I ended up with this one. Now, this vise is the John Hines twin screw vise. This project was my small project, so equivalent what the workbench gave me. This was about honing in on more the engineering plan side of the brain, which again is for me pretty ordinary. So I bought his plans, but then I used his plans to build this vise with a laser cutter. Now I had to make a laser cutter video anyway, but what it let me do was work through all the process of plans, layers, using some automation like a laser to get all these pieces, and then add some skateboard for a bit of fluff. This is a beautiful looking vise. It's not the best vise. In fact, I've broken a few teeth and the twins aren't actually working in unison anymore. And because I don't do a lot of hand tool work on the bench, it's not a big deal. And it's slow to spin the screws, but it works as a vise for me right now. I think the plan will be to maybe move to a leg vise with a big spinny wheel. Another project later on in the year, maybe. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is try and give yourself a couple of these style projects that are just for you, that you can work through something, learn things, get better, and at the end, feel pretty good about yourself. Okay, underneath, let me show you this box I have in here, which my father-in-law's neighbor handed over to me. The box itself was his father-in-law's. The box hasn't been used since 1980 something, and it was his kit that he got or had to make the box as an apprentice cabinet maker. Not even sure what he did yet. Haven't got the history for it yet. But this box is full of really old, cool hand tools. They all need a bit of a restoration. The box needs a restoration. Again, I'll probably treat that project as a long-term goal for me. Something that I would like to do just because. I will film it, obviously, nowadays, because I think it's worth sharing. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay. All right, this is a pretty long shed tour, and it might have been a little bit boring, but I do appreciate you guys over on this channel. I did make this channel because I did think these type of videos will be a little bit better received with the people that just like to actually sit through, watch a bit more, rather than just scrub through to the end and see what I made. So watching the video throughout makes it go well. So there's potential for this channel to actually drip feed a little bit of YouTube revenue in, because you're actually going to watch it. But more importantly, I hope I can actually share more of what I'm doing here, rather than the blingy videos on my other channel that lend themselves to doing well to the bigger audience. Okay, so I'm not using it for ad revenue, but that is one of the motivations, to get more information out, but not put them on the main channel where they're absolutely going to bomb and potentially kill off that momentum. Okay, so I think there should be a bit of a playlist, if I get my shit together, at the end of this video of anything I talked about in this video. Thanks very much. It's now the 4th of January 2024. Looking forward to this year. Pretty excited. I've got heaps to do. It's going to be a bit of a slow start for me. I've got to do a heap of work for my wife, and not a lot of content to pull out of that work, unfortunately. But you never know. Okay, Happy New Year.